Across the street, it says Arthur and Dorothy Pryor Place, and so I do want to acknowledge there's been co-signage, which is it's nice that that's one of the primary ways that local African American pillars of the community have been recognized. We also want to notice that through the fence of this park, you can see a wooden lot on the other side of the street, and then beyond that, a little bit of open space. That's where River Garden is, on DeVoe and 180th Street. I think it's important as we walk by Lambert Houses to know that Phipps Houses, the nonprofit housing developer who developed the Lambert Houses here, they distinguished themselves around World War I for building clean, low-cost, sanitary housing for African American workers by what is now Lincoln Center. That community was called the Tenderloin, and that was kind of a major African American settlement before Harlem developed a more African complexion coming through World War I. So that's Phipps Houses. Within Phipps Houses, there's enough history to do its own PowerPoint talk and its own walk. So I can't possibly summarize it, but I will name one person from the Lambert Houses community who's worth knowing, and that is Raheem from Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. So that's one of their vinyls from 1986, and Raheem is right there. So not only did Raheem grow up right in these buildings over here, just to show you the level of humility and the groundedness of this gentleman, he continued to live there even through his stardom and opening up for all kinds of acts all over the world until 2 years ago. And he still lives in the Bronx. He lives further north now, but just wanted to show you that that's one individual who came out of this community. And that's the back cover of their 1980s vinyl showing you the train station just 1 block away at Crotona Park East, which is the neighborhood that we're going to end this tour in. And I wanted to make a point of holding up this piece of musical history, because one of the ways that we validate working class history is to identify artifacts and material culture from that community. And so this document tells us a lot about society at the time that it was created. So for example, Mel Mel's wearing a beeper on his waist. That's useful information. There are people who are, teenagers today who don't know what a beeper is. So this is a document that can help them understand an earlier iteration in cell phones and smartphones. I also wanted to stop here because we want to acknowledge that early African American history is not just about slavery. In the Dutch colonial period, there were quite a few free Africans, and during the whole Spanish Colonial period, many Africans traveled as free people with the conquistadors. That's important to know. Free African American merchants were some of the earliest inhabitants in terms of people who came through, through Western history. It's North America, including Chicago. First Western inhabitant was a person of African ancestry. First person, dropped at the end of Manhattan Island by those Western forces trying to look for trade routes to Asia was a person of African ancestry. And right here, even in the colonial Bronx, there was a free population. Now, many people have called this being a slave without chains, because yes, you can move around and conduct your own business, but just because of the racism that got encoded into commercial law, your mobility was affected by racist norms. So that, for example, sometimes even free people could not deed land to their children. sometimes white workmen who were afraid of African competition appealed to make sure that black craftsmen could not work in certain industries, like creating barrels, which was a major colonial industry, because barrels are how people transported foodstuffs and dry goods during that period. So if you're a black craftsman and the law now says you can't make barrels, that is a major limitation. And the relationship of African craftsmen and foresters to this particular landscape is going to come up as we overlook the falls at about 182nd Street.